Setting aside fame, wealth, and riches, Michael is still just a man. Which man can resist a beautiful woman? Hey, are you really developing feelings for your sister-in-law? You can't stop thinking about her just after one day apart. Enough chatter. The car is waiting downstairs. Michael's face turned iron gray as he opened the secret passage and went downstairs. Lin Feng was driving a black business car and waiting in the backyard. He quickly opened the door and sat in the back seat. Mr. Jing, we found it. The phone's location is at one hotel. Along the dark path, the car slowly drove out of Solitary Moon Villa. After driving a distance, Lin Feng turned on the headlights. Jing Zhangting's stern face was hidden behind the car window, and he didn't say a word. It was already 6 a.m., and there was no sign of me returning home. A woman not returning home late at night and mingling in hotels, what she was doing was self-evident. Michael initially thought I was just in it for the money, but he didn't expect my private life to be so promiscuous. Such a woman was not worthy of being his wife. Tonight, he would let me know what the consequences of betraying him were. The car drove to the open-air parking lot of one hotel and stopped. Lin Feng glanced at his phone and turned to Michael. Mr. Jing, the signal tracking stops here. Madame Jing's car is parked here, but her phone seems to be left in the car. We sent people to search the hotel, checked every room, but didn't see Madame Jing. Lin Feng, like a robot, reported tonight's operation. What he didn't say was that the guards had disturbed many guests when searching the rooms, and now Xiao Wang, the young manager of the hotel, was chasing after him for an explanation. He had been with Michael for many years, and knew that Michael was never an impulsive person. Today, he made such a big fuss over a woman. It was really puzzling. If he really didn't like her, he could just get a divorce. Why bother personally catching her and making such a scene? Perhaps he still held some lingering hopes. Not seen. Right, it's impossible. Her car is here. How could she not be in the hotel? Could the phone and car be a ruse? Investigate again, keep searching. Lin Feng arranged for his subordinates to search again, but no matter how hard they searched, the result was still the same. As time passed, no news came. Michael's face grew darker and darker, and the air pressure in the car became lower and lower. Lin Feng suddenly realized that his phone was left in the car. My car wasn't parked at the hospital because when I came during the day, the hospital parking lot was full, so I had to park at one hotel across the street. I crossed the road, walked to my car, unlocked it, picked up my phone from the driver's seat, and bent over to find a box of ladies' cigarettes in the drawer. Mr. Jing, should we get out of the car? Lin Feng looked back at Michael. Michael remained motionless, shaking his head. His gaze watched me from afar through the windshield. Today, I wore a beige knitted sweater and a khaki skirt. Under the moonlight, I looked particularly gentle and soft. Yet, such a woman lit a cigarette with practiced ease, completely out of character with my usual demeanor. After lighting the cigarette, I didn't smoke it. I simply hugged my elbow, held the cigarette between my fingers, and leaned quietly against the car body, watching the cigarette burn down little by little. Somehow, my exhaustion seems to fade away little by little with it. My hair flows gracefully in the misty night, and I appear melancholy, even overwhelmed. These words, devoid of vitality, somehow enhance my beauty with an atmosphere that inspires an overwhelming urge to protect in those who see me. This version of me is vastly different from the aggressive one I present in front of him during the day. As I stepped out my cigarette in the trash can, I headed back to the hospital. Michael said, "Follow her." Lin Feng got out of the car, and silently followed me into the hospital. About 15 minutes later, Lin Feng returned to the car. Mr. Jing, Madame Jing has been standing outside the ICU. Her younger brother is currently unconscious in the critical care unit. Madame Jing and her mother have been guarding him all this time, looking like they haven't even eaten dinner. She just went downstairs to buy a basket of steamed buns and 2 bowls of porridge for them. She also has a younger brother. Michael doesn't know about my family matters. The marriage between the two of us was arranged by my grandmother from the very beginning. He only saw my picture before the wedding. Yes, Wei Shan's second son was involved in a car accident with Madame Jing's father some time ago and is now lying in a coma. I just asked the doctor, and he said he's most likely to become a vegetable. The word vegetable caused Michael to furrow his brows slightly. Find me all the information on Eva. For a whole day and night, neither my mother nor I got any rest. Fortunately, when the doctor came to check on Shen Zhenchen the next morning, he said that he had temporarily stabilized, and both of us let out a sigh of relief. Chen Yumai finally agreed to go back and rest. I saw my mother off first and left the inpatient department. After the nurse arrived, I returned to the solitary moon villa at Youbi. 3:00 in the morning. As soon as I got out of the car, I saw a black Rolls Royce parked on the lawn of the villa. It was Jin Wenbo's car. I've seen it once before when I went back to the Jin family's ancestral home. I am already exhausted. What trick is this guy up to now? I quickly walked through the courtyard and saw Jin Wenbo and his mother, Xu Jing, sitting in the hall as soon as I entered. Xu Jing was wearing the latest Chanel collection, her red lips glistening. At first glance, she looked younger than her chubby son, Jin Wenbo. When he saw me return, he glanced at his watch. Oh, you know how to come back, huh? Xu Jin sneered. Wenbo, your grandmother is really confused. After so much careful selection, she ended up finding Zhongtin such an unfaithful wife. It's only been a few days since they got married, and she's already staying out all night. Imagine what it'll be like in the future. Mom, don't say that about your sister-in-law, Jin Wenbo said. Maybe she had something to do. What kind of business could a woman have at night that requires her to stay out all night? I think she is taking advantage of Zhongting being in a coma and unable to control her. The mother and son duo finished saying everything they should and should. T have said, I was at the hospital. I said, my younger brother was critically ill last night, and my mother and I stayed at the hospital all night. Whether you believe me or not, I walk uprightly and sit with integrity. Even if you report this to Grandma, I am not afraid. I said, looking at Jin Wenbo. But as for you, brother, if necessary, shouldn't you go to Grandma and explain where you were and what you were doing on Saturday evening? That evening was when Jin Wenbo met me as an investor. Jin Wenbo didn't expect me to mention it so bluntly, and he suddenly felt a bit guilty. Xu Jing, who knows her son best, could roughly guess what I was implying just by looking at Jin Wenbo's reaction. She immediately felt angry. Jin Wenbo is Xu Jing, and her husband's only son, and they had always provided him with the best educational resources, grooming him as their successor. But this son was a disappointment. He didn't like studying, didn't care about making money, and only loved women. His lecherous nature hadn't changed even after marriage, but had only worsened. Over the years, Xu Jing had annually cleaned up countless messes and covered up for Jin Wenbo's indiscretions. But now, he had dared to eat from the family plate, and his hand had reached out to Michael's newlywed wife. If the patriarch of the family found out, it would undoubtedly cause a huge uproar. What do you want to say, Sister Gang Yin Gang Lo? I was with my wife on the Saturday evening. I smiled and walked closer to Jin Wenbo, whispering, brother, don't use your wife as a cover. Should we confront her face to face? Besides, don't you think the hotel corridor's surveillance footage can reveal the truth? Jin Wenbo's expression changed drastically at the mention of surveillance footage. Xu Jing, who had walked to her car, saw Jin Wenbo following her, and turned around to slap him in the face. Why are you hating me? Jin Wenbo looked. Jin Wenbo, I've told you countless times, lust is a double-edged sword. If you don't rein it in, that sword will eventually chop you up. Xu Jing glanced back at Gu Villa. Right now, Michael is unconscious, which is a perfect opportunity for you to seize power and surpass him in the company. Otherwise, when he wakes up, what will you have to compete with him? But you, instead of planning and strategizing, you're hating on his wife. Mom, I am sorry. Jin Wenbo immediately softened. Mom, you can rest assured that that living dad will never wake up. And even if he tries to, I know with your formidable means, you never give him a chance. Xu Jing snorted and walked away without another word, leaving Jin Wenbo behind. Looking remorseful in a room on the second floor of Gu Villa, Michael sat on the sofa, watching everything unfold on the surveillance screen. Down in the hall, Xu Jing and her son left with difficult expressions, having said something unknown to Michael. Finally gone, Fan Yuan let out a sigh of relief and said to Michael, These two scheming mother and son come to your villa to see you every now and then, making others think you have a deep relationship with them. In fact, they're just afraid that you suddenly wake up. The more guilty they feel, the bigger the exile and mountain must be. Let Lin Feng and his team keep a close eye on them.